Okay.
Leave the laptops up.
Yeah.
So did we do a sound check or anything?
Yeah, I just checked it.
Check.
So I guess to go on the way that the circle is, how to start the circle,
We can hear it.
I'll propose the question, what are economic and social implications of hosting an Olympic venue, specifically looking at Boston? And then all of us can go around and say like a quick something, and then we'll kind of dive into the whole conversation.
Sounds good.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, well, when I was doing some research, I found that what they talked about is how the Olympics will create a lot of jobs in the area to further the construction boom that's currently going on right now. They're also working to look for new construction methods for sustainability, and which means the facilities they want to build are going to be removable, like they can remove them at the end of the.
That's what they just want. They're building buildings specifically to remove them.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Wow.
basically what I got.
Right, and then, they're gonna build them so that they're easier to remove them. I don't even know how that.
So rather than
collapse.
finding another use, they're just trying
Put tents
to.
up.
Huh. That's interesting.
And they also were talking about where they're going to house the athletes. They want to be the same thing, new construction methods where they're going to be able to break those down and move them to other areas around Boston for affordable housing,
That's interesting.
which I still don't know if that's actually feasible.
It sounds incredibly hard.
Yeah, it
They
sounds
make
more
it-
expensive than just building it.
Because when you build them, it costs money, and then you have to transport them, which costs money.
Yeah, that's wild. I don't know.
Considering finances, we kind of talked before, I think they're saying that they're estimating this Olympics to reach up more than $5 billion, which is, a lot of articles I've been reading, is a huge understatement. The last
Wait, you're
five
saying the Olympics is gonna cost $5 billion?
cost them $5 billion.
Where does this money come from?
Taxpayers.
Cause I'm seeing some that says 15 billion on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense
And I-
because,
Like $5 billion seems like a tiny amount.
Right.
That might be like a certain cost, like a certain.
They also
area.
said that security is going to cost like even billions more
Oh, yeah.
on top of
Right.
that.
because Rio in 2016 was 20 billion. Sochi was 50 plus billion. London was 15 to 20 billion. I mean, these are all, there's no way Boston's gonna be as low as, under $10 billion.
Rio was just that wasn't Olympic, that was the,
World Cup.
Oh, World
Yes.
Cup, that's right.
but still, I
But
mean, that's
along the same
Similar.
lines.
Yeah.
definitely
It's-
similar.
Well, I think that's what Rio's plan might be, is to reuse the
Mhm.
stadiums
Yeah,
for World Cup for
they're
the
trying to get it
Olympic.
later on, yeah.
We're still just going around to give general opening statements of what we feel.
I'd say, just from being someone from Massachusetts and being from New England, I don't see how we could take on that many people with that big of a rush, and like the places they're expecting on using Worcester and using Amherst, and then the city itself. It's just, I just feel like, I don't know, from my understanding, it doesn't seem like we have the infrastructure to hold that kind of event. Like, I feel like when the World Series was going on, where there's 40,000 people in Fenway and 100,000 other people out there, is still a mess. And then you're expecting to host however many events over a 2-month span. It just seems massive, like everything.
Let alone all the transportation it's gonna take. And
Yeah.
that's when we're just in Boston,
Yeah,
now we're
no-
taking in outside cities and
Yeah, what happens
surrounding
when,
areas.
what happens when we're all, in our jobs in 2024, and we wanna get into Boston,
Right.
when there is
The
a
rest of the
million
world.
more people there.
You think about how much of an undertaking it is just to host the Patriots parade in
Yeah.
Boston.
Exactly.
Just the Patriots parade,
Mm-hmm.
let alone the entire world coming to one city. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, like going off what he said about infrastructure, I think it's something that definitely, if Boston wants to host it, totally has to be transformed. Like, look what just happened in the snow. The whole city, MBTA was shut down, they couldn't handle it. And so if you think about, you know, just some snow, you know, causing that big of a problem, just think about like having hundreds of thousands of people all coming in.
At least the snow you can physically move.
Yeah.
It's
Not
just
to
gonna-
men-
No, sorry.
No, well, not to mention the, like, you know, we're coming off like the wake of like the big dig, which was
Oh,
like
true.
absolute hell for
And
Boston.
it's still not like,
Yeah, it's not-
they're still
Not
doing
just
repairs to
economic
it.
ruin.
Yeah, and so
mean-
like that was considered one of the biggest construction projects like in the world. It, mostly because it was so difficult to work in the space of Boston, it's such a small city.
Yeah,
In
and
comparison, it's like what, 800,000 people live in Boston, and London just hosted it, where like 20 something or what is it, like 20 million people live in London, somewhere up, like, I mean, I don't know, it just doesn't seem.
One thing that, sorry to interrupt, but one thing that can be addressed on the flip end of what we're talking about, in this article I'm reading from the Boston Globe, says sometimes a deadline can help you to focus on the task at hand. Hosting the Olympics has a similar effect, encouraging cities to make long-delayed investments that help improve their transportation systems and address other vital needs. So essentially, you know, if there's problems in the transportation system that they would never look at unless they had an event like this coming to Boston. So I mean, it's a nice way to at least consider, you know, problems that would need fixing because of an event like this.
Actually, that's a good point.
I bet a lot of
I
people would
also-
argue that Boston already needs to
Right.
revamp their
Right.
stuff, so.
Right.
I mean, I'm just gonna be the guardian just for a second. I know we're getting into like the talking about it and whatnot, but we should still get around, just everyone have a say.
Absolutely.
That was a good point. Just watching that quick video of kids at BU, I was just thinking about what it would be like for colleges. I think it would be a very cool thing for colleges to say, like, I went to that school that hosted an Olympic event. However, could a college actually take that on? They plan on using, what'd you say before, you said 75% of the facilities? or-
75%. Was
Yeah.
a US Olympic team tweet that they sent out.
Yeah, would be college facilities, like, I don't, they couldn't handle all that.
I mean, it'd be
And-
interesting,
Yeah, no,
Um,
you got it.
It'd be interesting though if like the Olympic like committee would help pay for that, or if the schools would have to pay for that themselves.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something to look at, but I would like to see what implications it would have on them in general, different universities. Even if UNH could have something here, that'd
I-
be
Two
wild.
Olympic
But-
athletes in
Right,
Stoke.
Well,
exactly.
yeah, but if you think
Stoke is
about it, that
an
makes
Olympic
perfect
village.
sense. If they brought Olympic athletes to UNH because of the train. I mean,
Yeah.
there's several professors that live in Boston that take the train from Boston to here.
Yeah.
And that's easy enough to get a bunch of athletes at UNH where there's not a lot of kids in the dorms. I mean, a lot of schools, surrounding schools,
Especially during the summer, yeah.
use the dorms for summer camps. So it's
Well, you could even
definitely,
use dorms as maybe even a way to like, you know, rent, because there's gonna be a lot of people coming, you know, for the Olympics, so you could use them as like hotels or something, or.
Oh, easily.
It even just said in this one article reading that even in Boston, 90% of hotels are filled up to maximum capacity in the summer months.
Just
Now-
regular.
Just
Or
regular
stuff.
Boston. Now bring in the entire world. And what do you do? But
I agree, I have no idea.
yeah.
I would like to know how other cities have done it in the past, because I feel like Boston's such a small venue to begin with. I think we were talking about Lake Placid and Utah. Like, how have they accommodated the world coming to their venue? I also want to interested about the social implications of people living in the Boston area. I know somebody who said about like going to work.
Yeah, it's like the rest of the world
Like-
doesn't stop.
Right. There's still people going to work. There's still people taking summer classes at these universities. And is it you said taxpayers
Yeah.
are paying for the $14 billion like. So on one site that I was on, it said they have to prove that it's big enough. They have to convince residents that the expenses are worth it, like covering it are worth it, and they have to have like positive media coverage of the whole thing. And so they must have proved it somehow to get the bid.
Yeah, they proved it, which is like that's like a like extremely preliminary kind of thing, I
Mhm.
feel like. But I know they now have to, I'm looking at, on Boston, like the 2024 website, they have like, it seems like 10 scheduled public meetings that are being held in like different schools, like high schools or like at Harvard and at community centers, just where they're gonna be like public forums. And I feel like that's when they're gonna get like all the flack from it, and it's gonna come out in
Yeah.
just waves. And I can only imagine what those are gonna be like.
Who makes the final decision? Like, is it just like a lottery system at that point, or?
There's an Olympic committee that
Yeah,
will make the decision.
Yeah, they'll talk to like the
There's so many
officials
different
and.
countries with this.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different, but it's just, it's kind of crazy just to think about.
On some of the articles I read, one of them was very con having the Olympics come to Boston, and just kind of looking at like the history of different cities that have hosted it and who's been profitable and who hasn't been. And it talks a lot about the Olympic Committee and how corrupt it is, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of aspects that need to be looked at. I mean, this article, and it's of the Washington Post, it's the worst case was when in Athens, back in 2004, only 11 years ago now, the Olympics helped the country go bankrupt. So there's definitely, I mean,
Yeah.
look at the economic status we have now in 2015. In 9 years, do we see that getting better? How does the government propose to make sure that we do not get into a 2008 issue again?
That happened in Vancouver too. They said that they were supposed to, when Vancouver hosted the Olympics, they were supposed to, the contractor was supposed to pay for everything, but instead the contractor went bankrupt, left Vancouver $300 million in debt. That's a lot to take on.
Yeah, and reading right here, 1980 Lake Placid Olympics, they said, in like 1978, 2 years before the Olympics, they estimated around 80 million by the time, like the cost of it. This is again 1980, 80 million, and then it rose to 150 million right before the games. And then by the time the Olympics were over, Lake Placid, which is a small community, 3,000 people, was $6 million in debt. And I think that's total in 6 million, but just as Lake Placid as a
Yeah.
community.
Okay.
But they had already spent 90 million on the Olympics. And so that's, like, the state of New York had to step in and help them with that. So, I don't know, but Lake Placid also held the Olympics twice,
Yeah.
which is kind of incredible.
It's tough, like we're giving so many cons to this. It's tough to see why they'd want to do it in the first place, and I'm just thinking in my head, maybe it's just a pride thing.
Yeah,
If
talk
you
about
want
the
to have it for
pros.
your country.
I mean,
It's a
I,
pride thing for a
Mhm.
city that has been through so much.
Mhm.
To host a world event, that'd be
yeah, I
pretty
think it would
amazing.
definitely be like definitely prideful, like the Boston Strong thing, and just like seeing, you know,
Yeah, I was
we aren't
reading,
gonna be pushed around.
I was
I was-
reading,
Oh, sorry. I also found another thing too. This was more like the positive aspect about the Boston Olympics. It's from Yahoo Health, and one of their top reasons why they think it should be in Boston, which I can see is a good reason, is that Boston's a walkable and bikeable city. Which, I mean, I've been to Boston, and I can usually walk around almost anywhere, no problem.
As long as you know where you're going.
Yeah.
Are there enough people
That's
to go
definitely a good point.
directions? Like-
There's definitely like a lot of parks, especially like going to Esplanade and you know, all that.
And I mean, if you consider the athletes, it'd definitely be nice for the athletes to have another home game, if you will. You know, you don't have to leave the country. It's a, like we've talked about, it's a pride thing. And you also have to consider, like, imagine they wanted to have it in Boston, they gave us the bid, and then we just came out and said, we don't want this. You're not, we,
Yeah.
Boston said, you know, they don't want this. That wouldn't look good either. You know, your PR would look terrible if you know, you were openly saying, we don't think we can handle it, da-da-da. I mean, I think if they really didn't think they could, it would be responsible to say that you couldn't. I just think that looks bad for your city as a whole to try to kind of deny the opportunity, if you will.
Jason, what were you gonna say before?
Well, I don't remember.
Do we wanna try the talking stick and just see if that works, or should we just?
I think I like how it's going.
Okay. I'll just,
That was great, Pete. Someone said the last time about security and how like with the Boston
Mhm.
bombing, how that was,
That was,
yeah, there's something.
that was one
in
where
this.
they won, that's one reason why they won the US bid, is because of the way,
the response.
the response time and everything, and the way we were able to end the threat in the matter of like the time that we did. It just showed,
Yeah.
like, especially in a time where, I mean, obviously it was heightened security around the marathon, but it wasn't like we were expecting anything like that. But
Right.
we were able to, you know, catch the terrorists that did it. And so I think that was just like, you know, part of it, was just impressed them.
There's something on this website too, quote that this guy named David Zurin, he's from The Nation, I think it's like a newspaper or magazine or something, but it said, David Zurin at the National reported that Boston's ability to shut down after marathon bombing rocketed the city's top of the choices. So, I think that's definitely a reason why Boston was picked for.
There's definitely a trust aspect that Boston has because of the marathon bombing. I mean, there's this mentality that I think Boston and New England has, that no one's gonna mess with us, and if they try to, we're going to basically just like stomp them out.
Yeah.
But in I have an article about the title of the article is Boston Nailed Its Presentation. In one of the closing arguments, the person said that that the world comes to Boston for the universities, medical expertise, and business opportunities. So why not trust Boston to host the Olympics? So that's a huge aspect that socially, could we handle it as in that aspect? Could we handle any trouble? I think. I don't know if any of you guys would agree or disagree, but I feel like Boston could handle any trouble that would pop up from it.
I would say I bet, like, I don't know exactly what Marty Walsh's opinion on it is. I know he wants it. He's vowing, so he said that they won't use any public money for the construction of Olympic venues and all that stuff. But I bet there's, like, back to the pride issue. If, you know, Russia, so she was able to host their Olympics, but Boston's sitting there going, you know, why are you questioning us when you saw what happened in Russia? Like, I mean, it could only get better, I guess.
What I was thinking about, I don't know the answer, I wanna know what you guys think, regarding security, because of how well we adapted to the Boston Marathon bombings, do you think that we would need heightened security for the Olympics, or maybe a lesser of a security than like Sochi or London would need, or just the average? I mean, I feel like,
I think a
It's gonna be
ton more.
more,
A
yeah.
ton
that's what I was
more,
gonna say, I feel
especially-
like we would need more, and that's gonna be more.
It's gotta be heightened.
I mean, like the marathon compared to like the Olympics, like it makes the marathon look like, you know.
That's like
it's
one
like a
event
track
of the
meet.
Olympics.
Yeah.
It's like,
Nothing.
yeah.
And like just the Olympics in the US in general, I just think because of the way we stand in a lot of people's views in the world, I think no matter where in the US it would have to be incredibly high security. Not to say that, you know, hosting it in London would be any different, but yeah, that would be an incredible cost. I could not imagine how
Yeah,
much.
I feel like the security costs would
Yeah.
be insane.
Oh, they would hire a lot of outside contractors. I work with a person that, she works, as a security person under different places. So she'll come, she works at the casino ballroom, she works, well, that's different, but she works here for like the football games and stuff as a security person. And then, she was trying to go down to Rio, and she was actually looking to see if she could somehow work security for, if they come to Boston. So they would definitely hire a lot of outside contractors.
Right.
And then I think definitely they would use the police force, take in a lot of people from around the country, as well as probably make it somewhat of a military state.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'd have, you know, it's crazy to say, but at this point,
I
you know, you
mean,
might.
yeah,
stay
they'll
on
have the
the
National Guard and I'm
Yeah.
sure like a whole bunch of like state
Reserves,
polices
probably.
from New Hampshire, Massachusetts, you know, Rhode Island, Connecticut, maybe even Maine, you know.
Oh, easily,
Hold
yeah.
on.
I just wanna point out too, like with the marathon, that was specifically only in Boston,
Yeah.
whereas like
Yeah.
these,
So true.
the Olympics would be Boston, and then like we
Foxborough.
Foxborough, UMass
Worcester,
Amherst.
Amherst,
So you would need
maybe even Lowell
heightened
too.
security in those areas.
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't think about. It's like,
Yeah, it's not even a concentrated area.
So then it almost becomes, not only is it Boston, you're
It's
looking at like
Massachusetts.
Mass as a whole.
New
It's
England.
the
It's just
state
New
will be-
England.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when the bombings happened, they brought in SWAT teams from New Hampshire and Connecticut, as far as like New
State
York, I
troopers,
think, and
too.
like, yeah, state troopers, like, everyone around can help out with that. In a very, like, short amount of time, too, so, I mean, that's good.
There, it just goes back to the mentality that surrounds Boston and that surrounds New England, I think anyways. There's a very, any of us, except for you, but you two are the only ones that aren't from New England, there's this sense of pride that just
Yeah.
comes with being from this area.
Just to give everyone an idea.
Especially
what
sports,
it's-
sports.
Yeah, I was reading an article actually, they were talking about how Boston still has an inferiority complex, even though we have,
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
it's-
like
At
it's
so
least,
champion.
at
spoiled.
least in the past decade, absolutely.
Like, yeah, we're so spoiled when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
sports, and then like we're also like Boston's global innovators of like medical.
Yeah, that's
science.
another thing that was
Oh,
on this article, was saying that Boston has some of the top hospitals and doctors and trainers in the world. So it'd be like,
So that's like another reason
Yeah.
for them to be like, hey, why not have the Olympics here? Because our doctors can
Well,
handle,
Yeah.
any kind of situations that athletes come across.
Even looking at the Boston, with the bombing, I mean, we've been talking about the security aspect of it and how quickly everyone went to, what's the word? Just, wrangling everything and shutting the city down. We haven't even talked about the aspect of the 200-300 people that went straight to the hospital and how fast and the recovery processes
They're
and
able
how.
to handle that too.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I mean, that whole situation was
Really
just
good point.
incredible, but there was a lot of it that was
We
dealt
have to
with.
have top shelf medical staffs on hand. Even if you're talking about going to colleges, you'll have the top training staffs on hand too. Not to mention that these countries are gonna bring their own people to
Yeah.
handle those situations as well. That's what happens.
Not to play host, but I just wanna so we're all in agreement, Boston very well could hold the Olympics if we wanted to, but it seems like the general consensus is that we do not want Boston to hold the Olympics. Is that,
I mean,
I don't know.
I think it's good, like, with the aspects we talked about, the pros, like, oh yeah, Boston's like, really prideful, we have like, we can, be secure, we've gone through it before. So I don't think that would be an issue. I think mostly it's infrastructure wise,
Yeah.
that it's gonna be the
Uh-huh.
biggest issue.
Yeah.
And that's what they're gonna like have to take on.
What if we
In space.
change the
And space,
scope to New England, because it was kind of just the idea of,
Yeah.
okay, Boston is our central hub, but everything is within a New England driving distance. Would that change? Because I'm, like, my mind when we were saying that Boston's like this big, like, you can't do that. But if we change the scope to, and it probably will be if it is held in Boston, more of Massachusetts, potentially
You know,
New
that
Hampshire.
actually is a good point, because I think they'd have a little better PR around it if they advertise it as a New England
The New
event.
England.
Yeah,
Than
because-
just Boston, because when I thought the same exact thing, I said Boston, like Olympics in one little city, like you can't do that.
yeah.
But you talk about it as a New England thing, it makes it a little more bearable, but still, the economic
Yeah.
implications are,
Mhm.
I mean, you can't deny the facts of the past
Yeah.
economically, so.
And you still need to realize also though, like the main events are gonna be held in Boston.
In the
Yeah.
city.
So that's
Well,
gonna
I
be.
mean, at least the main Olympic stadium's
Yeah,
gonna be in Boston.
and with the Olympics, there's, 20 events going on at the same exact time.
Yeah,
So
it's-
that means probably 3 stadiums in Boston are being used at the
Yeah,
exact
like-
same time.
Like the Red Sox are gonna be playing then,
And that's true, yeah, you
Oh,
don't even think
right.
about the
Well, I
Boston
think-
sports teams.
Well, Bruins should be.
Bruins
over by
probably
then.
should be, well, hopefully, still playing.
I don't think we're getting that far this season, but yeah.
2024.
We got 9 years to get that.
Oh yeah, true.
Well, no, the Olympics are in August anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
they're
They are in
not. I
August.
mean,
But still,
we might
that's the
have
heart of
Patriots.
baseball
I mean, that's
season.
The Celtics.
No.
depending.
No.
Yeah, no, it's just before that.
Hey,
Before
guys,
preseason.
Preseason starts like.
They would just make them
August,
play all away.
Yeah,
Well, what
no,
about like 4th of July? Doesn't it start usually around then? And that's gonna be a huge strain too. Like everybody coming to Boston for. Like,
Did we just have
fireworks.
Historical
Olympics or was that 2 years ago?
I'm pretty sure the Olympics always start like August.
August?
Last week of July,
Yeah,
first
okay.
2 weeks of August.
No, are we, like, for surrounding areas, would they be completely dependent on the train system? Because
Well,
I
this
think
is.
so.
I
Not
was gonna-
completely.
Yeah,
I feel
what are
like
they
that
gonna do,
would be
rent cars?
madness. Have you ever been on the T when it's that
You've been on
packed?
the mass
Let her-
turnpike?
You team before a Sox game,
That's
before
what
a
I'm talking
Celtics
about,
game,
and that's
you
that's
can't
the
move.
most packed I've ever
God.
seen it, and that's for one event. You know what I mean? So
That's for something that happens, you know, for the Red Sox 90 times a year.
right.
Well, I was. No, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Well, I was thinking like airports, because I know Logan's like gonna be the main airport that everyone's gonna fly into. So I'm wondering like, are they gonna
Worcester
use
can't
like,
handle anything.
yeah, or
Where's
like Manchester, Boston,
Yeah,
Boston,
Manchester
or
and Worcester are hand in hand.
is Portland international? Anybody know?
There's P's.
No,
There's
but I
P's.
You
know,
know,
I think
probably flying to
Portland
New
is-
York.
Is
Providence.
Probably
Yeah,
people
P's.
flying to
Providence.
JFK.
Well,
Okay,
there's
that would
one
be a huge
airline I
one.
think that
And then
flies out
drive
there,
up.
but it's
Yeah.
not like a major one.
I think Portland's international.
Is
I'm not
it?
sure.
I mean,
It might be. I
if
mean,
we
you
want
got
to talk
Providence.
finances, though, the public transportation is through the roof with all the people using it. I mean, it's one industry that would
Yeah,
benefit,
and if they're
along with
talking about
construction, like we talked about.
how they're, if that will help
Car
them
rentals.
improve, yeah, if that'll help them improve the system
Right.
because of the mass influx. I say go for it because it's.
I mean, but
25 minutes, just to let you know.
Okay, but are people gonna be like wanting to drive in Boston now? It's already shitty as it is. I went to Boston and I drove into Boston in January. I got lost within like 2 minutes being in the city. So it's like
You could also.
everyone's just gonna be on the T or like using that. I just think it goes back to that.
It's just in general too, people from Mass, they just drive wherever they wanna
Oh, yeah.
drive.
Oh, yeah.
There's no-
assholes.
Absolutely.
Rio is hosting the 2016 Summer Games, the Summer Olympics.
Okay.
Oh, maybe that's what I was seeing when I was
Yeah.
looking at that.
And we were talking the other day that they're probably gonna try to utilize some of
Mhm.
the World Cup facilities.
Right, and
Absolutely.
why
I think
wouldn't
it'd be
they?
stupid if they didn't.
And why wouldn't they?
That's probably why they got the bid, because
Exactly.
they knew that they had.
They already had it.
And it has its disrepair.
Are they still having the next World Cup at Qatar or do they like mix that? 'Cause
I don't know
everyone
if
was
that's
so
been-
pissed about
Qatar
that.
is a total.
Yeah.
Now we're getting off track. Qatar is a shit show.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I wouldn't want to be playing. I wouldn't want to be playing soccer in like over 100-degree heat.
Yeah,
Not
that's
only
a
that,
huge problem.
they're
Political
using
atmosphere.
slaves.
Oh, true. Yeah.
They actually like slave people.
Well, that's what they did to build Dubai.
They take people from India, Asia, bring them in, and they give them their working papers. They rip it up right in front of them, put them in slums, and they say, I watched a whole special on it, and they say go to work, and they get nothing out of it but slavery. It's
I
ridiculous.
don't support
But
Yeah,
So let's wrap this up somehow. How do we think we can,
I mean, we don't have to come to a
Everyone-
conclusion.
Right.
We just, you know.
So our
well, everyone wants a
question,
final say.
Yeah.
right, our question was what are the social and economic implications of hosting the Olympics specifically in Boston?
So,
I think
So
we
if everyone does a
definitely,
quick final thought of
Yeah.
the social and the
One at a time.
yeah.
Well, I think it's something that everyone needs to get involved in. Like, everyone should deserve a say, especially like those living in the Boston area. They should definitely go to those meetings they're gonna have. Yeah, economic wise, it's tough. Like, I know they say they want to use a whole bunch of this like facilities that we already have, but I don't know, like cost of like infrastructure improvements and stuff like that. I just don't know if it'd be worth it.
yeah, I just feel like it's an overwhelming task. Not to say that Boston couldn't do it. I just don't know. I just feel like you're always going to come out on the bottom when it comes to economics in the Olympics. At least if history if history repeats itself, it's but
I mean, I just wanted to add one more thing. I was gonna say it earlier, but we don't have to answer. I was just like wondering like how Atlanta and Salt Lake are after they hosted the Olympics. Like, are they still in debt from that? Like, question marks? I think it was something we didn't like talk about at all.
I'm not aware. So I don't have any clue.
Just the internet.
I mean, I know we talked about Lake Placid.
Right. While she's looking that up, again, I mean, I don't think that the economical benefits weigh out. I really don't. We talked slightly about how the construction industry would go up. Some of the small businesses around the area would go up. The transportation, but I mean, like we've talked about, it doesn't seem like the Olympics are a financially profitable situation. But as far as a social thing, I think the publicity could be awesome for Boston. I mean, there's definitely places in the world, I mean, not many, but there's definitely places in the world where people have never heard of Boston. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but, you know.
I mean, most of the foreigners think of New York as like America.
Right. And again, Boston's a huge place, but some people may not have actually ever heard of it, and it would be good publicity for the city in general, which, again, like I said, I think that would be nice, but I don't think that the pros outweigh the cons, so I definitely need to lend myself to being opposed to the Olympics in New England, for once.
Yeah, I kind of just want to say, touching upon that too, looking at an example from London, I mean, after their Olympic Games, their tourism, so this is the social aspect of it, their tourism went up like 6%, and in 2013 they were actually the most visited city in the world. So I mean, socially, getting our name out there for, you know, tourism business, it would probably be awesome. But then again, some economic factors would also affect that, like all those tourists coming, you know, transportation issues, housing issues and everything, just it all will increase.
Definitely. Yeah, I gotta agree with you, Bonnie, because the economic implications that would come out of it definitely outweigh any good that it would do for us. And I think with the way that our nation is now, economically, I mean, 9 years is a long time away, but at the same time, 9 years ago was 2006, and see how far we've gotten in those 9 years, and having something of a event that is this big, what it could do to us I feel like it's just too much of a risk to take, depending on where we would be in our economic status. But there's definitely the good points of definitely Boston could handle it on a security level. But other than that, I think just it's too much of a risk.
I think we did a good job of touching upon the general economic standpoint of how this would benefit or not benefit New England and Boston in general. And I think that it would be beneficial if we had this discussion again to go into a deeper level socially, like we've talked about publicity-wise, but we kind of glazed over the fact that people are working and things like that, but how do the people in Boston feel about this? And I'd hope to think that we are an advanced enough country to not exploit the residents of the city like that has been shown in like Sochi or other places. So I think that we can figure that out. In general, I just think that the East Coast is way too congested for anything like this. But that's just point to it.
So that was actually a phenomenal point, how it affected people in the city and what they would think about it. I would just say from an economical standpoint, I think it's pretty safe to say it's not the best of ideas, historically speaking. You see all the examples that we've brought up today. Socially, I'm going to say again, like how many times, or not every country in the world, not every city in the world can say we hosted the Olympics. That's something very special to say. It's something very prideful, and it would be awesome. I'm thinking about it from a child standpoint in the New England area, you're 8, 10 years old looking at Olympic athletes, that'd be incredible. But would such a small area be able to hold something like this? I don't think so. I think you'd have to use dormitories at universities, and you'd have to definitely kick the people out who have lived here their whole lives to,
Yeah.
I think you'd be pushing them away to bring in everything else. Also that the point you brought up about the tourism, it would be like the best advertisement of all time for the city, but that's, you know, how much is that really gonna help it out? Alright. Turn that camera off.
Where's the
This is the button. Your thumb's near it. Your
Just
right
follow
thumb
there.
is near it.
right one?
5 minutes in.
Right?
Where,
No, your right
I
thumb.
did.
the right one? Oh, okay.